All right, we are going to go ahead and get started, and I'm sure more people will trickle in here. But welcome everyone. My name is Corey Lubring, and I am the PBRN coordinator at DO-Touch.NET. Thank you for joining us for this month's episode of Let's Talk About OMM Research. Before we begin, let's take a moment for the housekeeping rules of the webinar. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and tell us where you are from. We also invite everyone to turn their cameras on so we can be united as an OMM research community. Second, if you have any technical issues during the webinar, please put a message in the chat and we'll be quick to help you as quick as we can. And third, if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat and address each other's questions and comments there as well. Also, we will have time for discussion and questions at the end of the presentation. And lastly, please keep in mind that this webinar is being recorded and will be placed on the public DO-Touch.NET YouTube channel. And today is our Let's Talk About OMM Research DO-Touch.NET Network update with Dr. Brian Degenhardt. So please help us welcome Dr. Degenhardt.
Well, good day, and thank you for joining us for this month's webinar. I'm in the process of getting the right screen shared. Do you see my slides? Okay, excellent. It's hard to believe this is our 37th monthly program. So thank you for continuing to join us with these. And this month, as we do every 3 months, we give an update of the DO-Touch.NET activities and plans. So today we'll be looking first at DO-Touch.NET impact. Many times we just focus on the work that we're doing within the network, but there are things that are occurring around us as a result of the work that we do that we don't always appreciate. In the last quarter, I've been able to participate in 2 significant conferences. I'd like to give you some impression of the impact that we're having abroad. Then we'll look at our various studies that are going on and our upcoming meeting for 2024. So the first conference that I'd like to talk about was sponsored at Mayo Clinic on September 22nd and 23rd. And they had first a preliminary conference for family medicine residents within their program. There were over 30 residents from 5 different residency sites, including their primary Mayo Clinic site there in Rochester, who participated for a day-long program. And I was invited to participate in that part of the program to promote an experience of what palpation calibration is. And that this is something within DO-Touch.NET that is part of what we consider our perk, where our members can come to Kirksville and receive this type of calibration training at a greatly reduced cost. Well, at this meeting, we were able to bring our pressure sensing system, and the residents at this program, as you would expect from any resident at Mayo Clinic, these were a group of very motivated, very rigorous people who had really not experienced this side of osteopathic training before, and was very surprised and pleased that what they do with their hands can, on some level, be objectified. And so there was a lot of interest towards future collaboration with the Research Institute and with DO-Touch.NET, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. So that was the pre-conference. To have 30 family medicine residents, and a couple of them were MDs as well, I thought that was a pretty impressive event. The following day at the main conference, DO-Touch.NET actually sponsored the breakfast, and I had the opportunity to give the keynote presentation for that conference called Science in Osteopathic Medicine. And this is a layout of the conference area, and there was a lot of obvious hands-on training that was going on and a lot of good engagement. My specific presentation was entitled this, and as you can see, it focuses on DO-Touch.NET and the promotion of research in osteopathic manipulative medicine. So the issues that were highlighted at that conference was that there is a lack of precise, objective, reproducible, and consistent definitions within our field, within our clinical observations, with just the descriptions of what we do with our hands and how we report what we're feeling with our hands. And we know that within science, accurate observations is just a prerequisite for successful science to occur. We also know that while a lot of people believe that in the medical sciences, that science dictates a uniformity, that everybody is treated the same, everybody's given the same pill, so forth. Well, in reality, when it comes to procedures, skills with the hand, whether that's surgery, OMM, whether it's related to psychotherapy, that level of uniformity is not required, but it does require very clear description of what is being done. And we know that the knowledge about palpation skills by osteopathic physicians and osteopaths worldwide is limited. In fact, if we're critical of the literature, which certainly is evident in the Mayo Clinic community, we know that evidence indicates that the reliability and accuracy of what's done with the hands is actually not very good. And as a result, we have significant difficulties generalizing our diagnostic and therapeutic skills. And as a result, it limits the usefulness of research, and it limits our ability to interpret research, because we really have difficulties actually characterizing what was performed within a particular study. And so with the work we've been doing over the last 20 years at the A.T. Still Research Institute, we have been able to develop a variety of methods to quantify palpation skills. It is no longer something that is just not available. We know it is possible. We know how to do it, and we are providing that skill across the world. Objective quantification provides valuable feedback for people to assess and to refine their skills. And as I said, having that level of training, so being able to say that our skills have been calibrated, can be clearly defined, that makes a big difference within science. So there are many opportunities that we're seeing when we look at a place like Mayo Clinic, really opening up and engaging the field of osteopathic manipulative medicine. Certainly, we wouldn't have our network for the last over 10 years doing research in this field if we didn't personally believe that there was an important part for research within this field. But when I look at residency programs in general, they're kind of a ground zero for defining the future of osteopathic manipulative medicine. And so the issues is, whether what we provide with our hands, is it truly a form of medicine or is it just a form of therapy? Are our hands equipment or are they actually calibrated, refined instruments? Are we clinicians or do we actually see ourselves as clinician scientists? And do we invest in our training to be able to have that type of identity? I think these are all things that are opportunities that are occurring because of DO-Touch.NET's work since its development. Mentorship in research is necessary, and Mayo Clinic actually contacted me and DO-Touch.NET as a way to get mentorship and help bring along their early community of wanting to engage research in this field. So you have seen this, you may have seen in previous presentations of mine, this definition of science. And so when we talk about an organized search, as Sir Francis Bacon wrote over 400 years ago, this is what DO-Touch.NET is. It is an organized search of natural phenomena. That natural phenomenon looks at health, dysfunction, and disease. And as a result of the work we've done, people like Mayo Clinic and their residencies are coming to us.
Peter?
Are coming to us to.
Thank you. I can relax for a few minutes, sure. We were going to switch out my hearing aids.
We'll need to mute your microphone, please. And so, and then the research moves carefully along progressive stages until a level of certainty is reached. Too often within osteopathic manipulative medicine and related fields, that we kind of are looking for one study kind of answers all questions, and that's just not realistic. And so looking at performing simple studies, building upon previous studies, this is certainly part of our experience with DO-Touch.NET. This is certainly what we are recommending to occur within the Mayo Clinic organization, and they are looking towards us to be a partner in promoting research in this field within their organization. So I think that's really exciting. They are now going to be launching what they call the Osteopathic Research and Education Collaborative, of which DO-Touch.NET is a member of that collaborative. Its purpose is to elevate osteopathic medicine through evidence-based research and education. And its mission is to promote the advancement of osteopathic medicine by fostering a culture of evidence-based research, critical inquiry, and open dialogue. They are dedicated to upholding the core principles of scientific rigor and innovation in our investigation of osteopathic medicine. I think this is an amazing moment within our history to have Mayo Clinic take on the direction of osteopathic manipulation within a truly a global leader in the field of medicine. So I think this is very exciting, and DO-Touch.NET has helped to lead this way. On the right is the list of their DOs and MDs within their Mayo Clinic faculty that are leading this initiative. Are there any questions about this activity, that this program that's developing within Mayo Clinic? Okay, so going across the Atlantic, DO-Touch.NET was also a part of the Osteopathic International Alliance Conference, which was held just recently on October 21st in London. And that conference was held in London because it was celebrating the 30th anniversary of osteopathy's recognition within the national health system in England. And so they asked me to provide a presentation, which I entitled in this way, as you see there. And so a lot of people, when they saw semantic dysfunction, they thought I must have misspelled something, that I must have meant somatic dysfunction. But really, it is semantic dysfunction that, because of our work within the Research Institute, within DO-Touch.NET, has really brought this to become an international issue. So part of the background for this topic, and you have heard about the International Consortium on Manual Therapies. This is an interprofessional initiative within the Research Institute that has engaged chiropractic, physical therapy, massage therapy, and structural integration professions to help break down the isolation and silos, to help bring together manual therapy practitioners and researchers related to this field to collaborate in an open-minded, supportive, progressive, and respectful multi-professional environment to discuss and ways to advance the practice and science of manual therapies. And so we had over 30 DOs that participated in the work of this consortium thus far, but these 6 people have truly been the leaders within the osteopathic profession. And from the bringing together the work that we have done within DO-Touch.NET and ICMT has led to an acute recognition of this issue of semantic dysfunction. So here is a reporting form that we use in DO-Touch.NET, where we can see the various regions of the body along, the y-axis. Along this X portion, we see the various treatment methods that we would record when we're collecting data on our research, and we also would look at your impression of response from those techniques. Now, because of our experience with that form, a few years ago, we developed and maintained on a monthly basis what we called the Technique of the Month. And the outcomes from this program was presented at the inaugural conference of the ICMT by one of our Germany members, Marcus Weslowski, looking at osteopathic manipulative technique nomenclature. Is there a need to inform consistency? And that poster actually was one of the winners of top elite winners of one of the awards of that conference. So DO-Touch.NET work was certainly well acknowledged in that interprofessional environment. So here we are looking at the various osteopathic techniques, starting with cranial, articulatory, visceral, myofascial. And here along the x-axis, we see the probability of consistent categorization, from having 0 or no consistency to having a 1.0 or 100% consistency. And so some of you may have participated in this project, but for those that didn't, what we did is we had members videotape themselves doing a technique without any audio. And we would take that video and we disseminate that to our membership, and we would ask them, how would you categorize that particular technique? And on some of the versions, we followed that up after we collected that data. We included an audio description of the member performing the technique without naming the technique, giving descriptions about what's being done, and then having people re-vote as to how they would categorize that particular technique. And so what we found was here in this green box were those that had almost perfect consistency. And so cranial was our number one, muscle energy, articulatory or still technique fell within being at least 80% or better consistency in identifying that name for that technique. Then we had those that fell into a moderate range. And then we can look more specifically at those that fell into a fair or not superior to chance range. And so this is a really big issue, because if we're collecting data to do science on it, and we have no consistency on the data we collect, then it doesn't really matter what outcome we have. We will not be able to use that information to help shape future care. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But here are the techniques that we found that we had not superior than chance consistency and categorization. That being our indirect or functional methods, our lymphatic drainage techniques, and myofascial release techniques. So to look at this at a more specific level, I'm going to go back to the top of the list and to look at the cranial approach. And this is something that we identified and have highlighted in a manuscript that's under its final review right now from ICMT, looking at the cranial approach. And so what I already said is the cranial, we had the greatest consistency in being able to identify that when we watch somebody doing that. But when we look at the definitions of cranial, here we see that it's a system of diagnosis and treatment that consists of balanced ligamentous, balanced membranous tension, and fluid techniques. And when you look at this, so these are kind of more indirect techniques. These are the more membranous or myofascial type of techniques, which are actually at the lowest end where we have consistency. And so really the only reason why we have high consistency in identifying the category is because we see people put their hands on somebody's head. But we have no idea really what the hands are doing when it's on a person's head. It could be three very different techniques. It could be balanced ligamentous or balanced membranous tension. If it's balanced ligamentous tension, then we're talking about looking at sutures, bones, ligament structures. If we're looking at balanced membranous tension, we're now talking about membranes, so a whole different anatomic structure and potential mechanism of action. And then fluid techniques, looking at the CSF and how we try to interface with that. So even when we have good consistency in a term, we have very poor description and precision of what's really going on with our hands. And if we don't have that, we have difficulties performing science in this field. And so the working group within ICMT, and they have certainly reached out to us and to encourage members from DO-Touch.NET to get involved with our next manuscript. It's going to talk about minimizing semantic dysfunction within the osteopathic profession, where when we look at our therapeutic interventions, that we look at establishing certain criteria to report what we do. And so that would include this list, defining what the site of contact is. And so I will give an example of one of the techniques that was done within our Technique of the Month video. One person had a technique where they had their hands on the anterior posterior part of the rib cage on one side. And so they were contacting primarily, the rib cage and associated structures. Then they would need to define the structure intended to be treated. And so when we looked at that particular video technique, that was one of the techniques that we had very poor agreement on. Because very easily, we probably all could come up with techniques where those hands could be dealing with just the chest cage, the rib cage itself, or it could be involving the diaphragm, or it could be affecting or having a focus on the liver or perhaps even the lung viscera. And there are even techniques that I'm aware of where that treatment is actually intended to deal with the faults up in the brain and not actually trying to address the local anatomic structures themselves. And so by having a clean definition of what is intended to be treated is really important. And then a categorical description of force. Based off of the research we've done at the Research Institute, we now have a way of training people so that we can actually characterize the forces being used across appropriately trained clinicians regarding the force they use. Then looking at the direction of force. Certainly the term, we talk about going direct or indirect with our hands. We were very surprised that that concept is uniquely osteopathic, that other manual therapy groups, that is not even part of their consciousness as to how they engage the barrier. So that's one aspect of what we see as a unique aspect of what we do within the osteopathic profession. But we also believe we should be able to report the direction of force based off, are we doing primarily a compression, distraction, shear forces, or multi-directional forces, which certainly we commonly do when we're dealing with myofascial unwinding or different factors along that line. With this level of information within our science, within our reporting of what we do, within our medical records, all of a sudden we now have the ability to actually influence the scientific process with what we're doing with our hands. All right, so the other thing that came out from the OIA conference is while we were celebrating the 30th anniversary in England, we also learned that the BSO, the first osteopathic educational institution outside of the US, which began, I believe, around 1917, is actually in the process of being amalgamated into a chiropractic university. So it is actually shutting down. And the European School of Osteopathy in Maidstone, England, is also shutting down. And so while we were there to celebrate, we also are recognizing that there's also some significant current issues that are disconcerting. And these are issues that science will help us in addressing and further amplifies the value of the work that we are doing within the practice-based research network, but also in the various groups that are reaching out to us for expertise and mentorship as they, work in building their osteopathic research infrastructures. Any questions about the DO-Touch.NET impact or around the world, really, regarding the work that we have been doing?
I just want to say thank you, Brian, for the report, and thank you for representing us so well.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, so we'll go on to our next area and giving you an update on the actual studies that we are doing. Our current active study is our post-COVID and OMT study. Currently, that is active. We have begun recruitment here at KCOM at the Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine. We have had 5 people with post-COVID come through the clinic. We've been able to enroll 2 of them thus far. And we are now at the point that we are wanting to recruit other sites. It's been a long process to get to this moment. We've regulations change daily. And so there was a variety of requirements that we needed to update for this type of research. And so those include in this list of requirements, we had to make sure that we were meeting all current standards along this line. We have succeeded in jumping through all those hoops with the university legal team. And so next week you will be receiving an email recruiting you to join into this study. And Corey Lubring will be front and center in helping to facilitate that process at all members. Now, because of the issues of personal health information, we will only be running this study at this time within the United States. Because as soon as we go outside of the United States, there's significant legal issues that significantly complicates our ability to run this study. But one of the advantages of going to these meetings, so at the OIA, I did meet up with people in New Zealand, Australia, and in Germany who really want to collaborate with DO-Touch.NET to be people within the European Union and within the other legal systems to basically help us manage these issues associated with private health information. So I am hoping through nurturing this collaboration that we'll be able to open up our doors in the upcoming in 2024 to involve all of our members in this research.
Dr.
Okay, any
Degenhardt,
questions about the post-COVID study?
Dr. Degenhardt, there's 2 questions in the chat. Dr. Ellis wants to know, will the schools that are closing down be replaced with something else?
So at this time, there is no indication that that is happening. There is a big void occurring, and I would say the BSO, when they became part of a university structure, and so I think as the decision was outside of their direct administration, if I understand things correctly, and has been more of a university-based decision. Nobody really knows how to predict where that's going. But from the ESO perspective, this is a financial decision. COVID ended up causing a significant financial impact on that institution. The number of people enrolling has significantly dropped, and as a result, they will no longer be continuing. So all of the training programs across Europe are trying to, understand what the ripple effect is going to be, and so that's where we stand at this time, as far as I know.
And
Yes, Ron?
Does that mean there will be no osteopathic training in England now?
My understanding is that there's still 2 or 3 more programs in England, but these are tend to be the more recent and smaller schools. I think the BCOM, I think I got the right letters for that, which is in London, or on the outskirts of London. They are definitely continuing. So there will still be training programs in London or in England.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then Dr. Warden has a question about inclusion exclusion criteria for the COVID study.
Okay, so we
sorry, the question is, does post-COVID symptoms have to be the primary CO, or can we enroll any patients who present for any reason who have had a history of COVID infection?
Well, so thank you for the question, Kate. clinically, we have to be confident that we feel that they are still an active post-COVID patient. They may be seeing us for, let's just take a remote example of maybe osteoarthritis of a knee or an extremity, but they are having fatigue, brain fog, shortness of breath, whatever might be, attributable to post-COVID. If your care focuses on, the issues associated with an active post-COVID condition, then yes, they would meet the inclusion criteria for the study.
All right, that was our questions at this time.
All right, thank you for keeping an eye on that for me.
Which definition of post-COVID syndrome are we using? I mean, is there a standard definition which is being used for all participants?
Yeah, so we have all of that in our July webinar. We went into the details associated with this particular study. So you can pull up a more comprehensive overview of that. But basically, the current status of that, as far as I am aware, that basically it's either persisting symptoms since the acute onset or symptoms that have developed within a 3-month period of time that falls within the symptoms that have been attributed to the post-COVID or attributed to COVID-19, to the coronavirus. And we have a list of the common conditions that we would want people to use to help, ensure that we're collecting the right patient. But even in the most, the largest studies, they do acknowledge that there are up to 200 different symptoms that have been reported to be associated with this syndrome. My hope is that we focus on the top, that the patients we will see will primarily focus within the top, 10 of those symptoms, which I just had mentioned regarding brain fog, shortness of breath, fatigue issues, sometimes GI and cardiac changes, cardiac arrhythmias are part of the more common issues. So I would want us as clinicians to identify, based off of our current list of symptoms, identify our patients that would fall into that category as part of the inclusion criteria.
All right.
Okay, so once again, was there another? Okay.
No, go ahead. I was just saying that was all our questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so once again, you will be hearing from Corey over the next week, but certainly periodically thereafter, in recruiting physicians within the United States to this particular study. So please keep your eye out for it. We have done everything we can to make this as streamlined and as simple for everyone's clinic environment. We will be giving a lot of support to help to make sure that it is reasonable and feasible. Once again, you can go back to an earlier of our Let's Talk About OMM research sessions, and there'll be a much more detailed information about the specifics of the study. Now, the other line of work that we have focused on this year are card studies. And for those who participated in our last year's annual meeting or have been active in following our communications and our webinars, card studies are a very simple yet robust form of studies that can be done very quickly, very easily. Basically, our hope is that when you see a patient that falls within the criteria of a study, that you will have everything done in submitting the data for that particular patient within 5 to 10 minutes, solely using your cell phone. So really, these are the card studies as an archaic term. For us, we should say phone studies. But at our last meeting, we talked about the vetting process for research ideas. And we are looking to you, to membership, for these research ideas. Our whole purpose of our last conference was, in bringing in card studies, was to empower you to identify research issues within your own practice and bring them to the Institute as a potential area for research. So if you come up with an idea that you think, yeah, this is something that we need to look at using a scientific process, there are 2 phases that we ask. So first one is just to give us a letter of intent, and that's just a single page that kind of outlines what your research question is, and kind of just an overview of how you think it would run. And then once that has been reviewed and has been accepted as something that is very meaningful and appropriate for the research network, then doing a more complete proposal, which we're just talking about, a 2 to 3 page proposal, giving us a little bit more details about how you see this running in your head. And so we have information about what is expected for that letter of intent. We have received 2 letters of intent that have been submitted. They've gone through the coordinating center review as well as the executive committee review. And both ideas have been accepted. And then our goal is to, provide, when needed, a research mentor to help, the member to kind of manage the study. And then both have then also submitted their research proposal, which has also been reviewed by the coordinating center and the executive committee. The executive committee has accepted one to go into an active phase, and the other one has been sent back for further refinement and then a re-review. So these are the 2 card studies that have been submitted. One that looks at the use of osteopathic manipulative treatment for non-musculoskeletal conditions. We want to see if we can get a better handle as to what non-musculoskeletal conditions are being treated with OMT, how often they're being treated, and so forth. And the other area is looking at how are osteopathic physicians addressing the spirit of their patients. And so this goes back to our fundamental roots of us as osteopathically trained clinicians, see that the mind, body, and spirit is all involved in health and dysfunction and disease of our patient, and that we are challenged to support our patients on whatever level their disease or dysfunction is, and to promote, healthy lifestyles on all those levels. And so we want to begin to understand what that actually means in current practice. And so, as one might suspect, that there are a lot of caution when in current society, when you start talking about something like spirit that could then overlap into religion and so forth. And so that is still in its early phases of development, and we'll be looking forward to updating you on that in 2024. Are there any questions about this?
One question I have is, we came up with a pretty long list of potential card study ideas at the in Colorado. And do you still? I mean, I assume you still have that list, and I'm wondering if that could be shared.
Yes, so that is a great lead into our next part. So thank you, Jed, for the comment. As a participant in last year's annual meeting, Jed remembers that within our breakout sessions, we identified areas that we felt would be studied well using this card study design. And so we do have that list. And these topics here come out of that particular list. What we need to move ahead is people that are willing to take kind of more leadership roles around specific topic areas. And so as we looked at how are we going to continue to engage membership, expand engagement, expand, the research that we're doing, that and build upon what we have done in our previous, our last annual meeting. That actually leads us to our upcoming annual meeting. And I believe you've already have received some surveys looking at research areas or areas of interest that we are wanting to build focus groups around. And from that, we are going to take that information along with the information that you just talked about, Jed, and from that, get us to, that will be our foundation for our 2024 annual meeting, which will be held in Colorado Springs in March, entitled Getting Back to Our Grassroots. And so with that, I would like to have the Institute Director, Marie Jackson, go ahead and to give us an overview of our upcoming annual meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Oops.
You're good.
Thank you, Dr. Degenhardt. Can you hear me? I'm having trouble with my mute this morning. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So the DO-Touch.NET annual meeting is scheduled for March 6th in Colorado Springs. And we believe this meeting is going to be a pivotal moment in the evolution of our OMM research. The event theme, Getting Back to Our Grassroots, will act as a beacon of education, collaboration, and inspiration for our OMM professionals. The morning will commence with a warm welcome and breakfast, setting the stage for the day of shared knowledge among our professionals from various corners of the OMM community. Attendees will gather and exchange ideas and experiences, rekindle their passion for research, and set the tone for future collaborations, as well as reignite that research spark. The morning's first executive session will feature Dr. Degenhardt and Jane Johnson, and they're going to provide a comprehensive update on the organization's ongoing research projects, as well as a positive impact on the membership engagement of OMM. Following the executive overview, I will take the stage and talk about forming, storming, norming, and performing, which is by Dr. Tuckman, a 4-stage model of group development, and how that relates to laying the foundation of our special interest groups, or our SIGs, we're calling them for fun. The day's highlight will undoubtedly be the special interest group sessions. In small groups, we're going to get together and participate and dive into these grassroots areas and discuss a variety of the topics based on the card study information from last year and new things that are on the horizon this year. And we hope to walk away with collaboratively designed research topics that are specific, measurable research questions that we can take action on. The level of engagement and brainstorming and synergy in these small groups, I think will be palpable and signify a collective commitment to advancing OMM through research. So in summary, the DO-Touch.NET annual meeting will mark a turning point, we think, in the field of OMM research and really shape the future. Attendees will hopefully leave the event with a deeper understanding of the ongoing research efforts, renewed inspiration to contribute to the research, and a collection of well-defined research questions that will guide our future endeavors. And the event will serve as a vivid reminder that coming together and returning to our grassroots, reigniting those research flames, and charting the way forward for OMM research for our patients. So we can't wait to see you in Colorado Springs. Thank you, Dr. Degenhardt.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. So just so that you know, we have over 1,000 members within DO-Touch.NET. DO-Touch.NET now have members in 26 different countries. We need research in this field. We need to start establishing evidence-based practice for this field, because we don't want what's occurring in England to become on a larger scope. We know that what is being done with our hands has significant therapeutic value, and for us to better understand it, to better teach it, to advance it in the future requires engagement in research. And that's exactly why I hope we are all members within DO-Touch.NET. And so this annual meeting, as with previous annual meetings, for those that can be there in person and in Colorado Springs the day before the beginning of the AAO convocation, that would be great. But we have now years of experience in having a hybrid conference so that you can be anywhere on this planet and participate. So please consider, blocking out the related time. It's a 4-hour block of time on March 6th to participate, to engage in the purpose of this meeting, to help shape the future research in this field, and to help assure that the influence of DO-Touch.NET, as I demonstrated in the beginning of today's update, continues to expand, and that the work being done at places like Mayo Clinic and so forth just continues to make the work that's being done within the osteopathic profession, within the fields of manual therapies in general, a part of standard care for the world's patients. So thank you for your involvement and participation today. If there are any final questions, we'll be happy to address them.
Brian, do you know what time on that Wednesday it's occurring so we can block it?
Yeah, it's 8 to noon Mount time, which would be Central. Let's see. No, that's just one time. So that would be Mountain Standard Time.
Dr. Downs?
Yeah, I'm sort of looking at whatever step 3 or step 4 is with regards to the card studies. So once somebody has an accepted proposal, what does the outreach look like to the membership to get people participating in a specific card study?
Yeah, so it is part of the responsibility of the coordinating center here at Kirksville to do that. And I can guarantee you, I have total trust in Corey Lubering's ability to get this information out, to engage people and easily get them involved in these particular studies. So if at any time there are questions along this line, you certainly can address me with them. But in the end, they will probably go to Corey. So I would definitely include him in any questions about a card study and getting involved in it.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, just for a quick overview and everything, we've had that a survey going out the past couple weeks, forming special interest groups based on those topics that we came up with from our annual meeting from last year. And now that we're finally ending response with that, because it's been out for a few weeks, we here in the near future are going to be reaching out to those that expressed interest in those different special interest groups topics and forming those research teams related to those SIGs and getting some initial just team meetings and such before we get to our annual meeting next year at the beginning of March.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Corey. And our hope would be in January that we will have a initial SIG meetings for those particular areas, so that people get to know each other, start, getting some ideas started, getting the all the wheels oiled up for what will be our hope is an amazing annual meeting. I do have one other kind of announcement. Just as you all may be aware, in the past, the Institute has annual research meetings. In a week, 2 weeks from now, we will be having our 15th annual Interdisciplinary Biomedical Research Symposium. We do encourage anyone within who is interested in science to participate. There is a good amount of research that directly relates to manipulation being presented. Our keynote speaker is from the University of Tennessee, Dennis Black. He is a career pediatrician and researcher within the field and has mentored many people in becoming successful researchers. And so I think his presentation will be fabulous. It costs nothing to participate in. And we will be using GatherTown as a format to engage people who are going to join us remotely. So I can guarantee you'll have a really eye-opening and entertaining and engaging experience if this would be interest and work in your schedule. So that's on November 11th on Saturday. Well,
all right. Well, yeah, I'll wrap us up, Dr. Degenhart, because we have cut our time is up for this webinar. And so if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out to us at DO-Touch.NET at atsu.edu or comment on this video when it's live on YouTube. Don't forget that this webinar is going to be placed there so we can continue any discussions that we have, and watch your email for that announcement when it's available. So thank you, Dr. Degenhart, for that wonderful presentation. And our next episode of Let's Talk About OMM Research will be an educational webinar that will be on November 17th with Dr. Angela Tyson, and she will be discussing using osteopathic manipulative medicine on preterm infants in the neonatal intensive care unit to reduce neuromotor developmental delays. And so we will look forward to seeing those that want to attend then. And thank you all for attending today.
thank you, Corey.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Goodbye.